Bitcoin on Wednesday hit a new all-time high of more than 66,000
Now
US
it's starting
dollars.
to actually gain some
If
traction.
you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day.
It has quintupled in value over the last year.
Elon Musk makes one of his riskiest bets ever.
Money is just a number in a database.
We're talking about a decentralized world.
The supply of dollars can never be sufficient to satisfy the debts that it creates.
Ross Ulbricht sells his NFT collection for almost 6 million worth of Ethereum. German bank begins to offer cryptocurrency trading, and WhatsApp begins dabbling with crypto payments as well. Welcome to All Time High, a crypto podcast. I'm David Vader, your host, and here's my co-host, Swirty. How you doing, man?
Great today. Looking forward to the show. We've, again, another exciting week in the world of crypto and Bitcoin.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of things happening. Price keeps dropping, lots of opportunities to buy the dip, but it's not going too hard at the moment, which is great. And of course, lots of positive news coming through the train.
It's great to see it stabilize as well. I mean, I know it's been up and down a bit, but horizontal movements are always better than just obviously complete catastrophes or absolute randomness. And it is good to see a bit of support for it sitting around that, 47, 48 sort of thousand. But yeah, hopefully we start seeing some upsides. Especially because, we're seeing the hash rate raise and we're seeing a lot of interest in NFTs now with that whole market sort of shifting that direction.
That's right. I mean, good point. Ross Ulbricht, we spoke about this last week. He launched his NFT collection of drawings and other things. And that went ahead, the sale went ahead, and he pocketed almost 6 million worth of Ethereum for his charity. So this charity, I believe, is structured as a DAO in a lot of ways. Very interesting to see how effective this essentially a fugitive can be in the world still operating.
Yeah, this is the Free Ross DAO. And obviously it's going to go to, there's like fractional pieces of this are going to end up sort of going to different parts of it. And I'm still not exactly sure how they're putting all of this together because he's essentially, there's $6 million now of funds that they can use for legal costs. And as part of what they're going to be doing is creating these Ross tokens. And like this sort of stuff it's incredible to think that someone like Ross Ulbricht, who's like the guy's doing life in prison and he can create a series of NFTs which can raise $6 million. And they're now going into a DAO, which all of this is based off of Ethereum. And people are looking at this now. He's obviously quite well known. And this entire sector, new things are popping up all the time, which people didn't realize you could actually do.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. Like it's like you're imprisoned in the real world, but that now is only one world. We have this metaverse that even though he doesn't really have readily available internet access, he's still able to participate in this age of information because there's no longer his physical body. Obviously his physical body can be imprisoned in the real world, but information can't be imprisoned. He's able to draw. He's able to write.
Yeah, his intellectual property.
These things, his signature can still sell on the information web or the metaverse. And, this is just the start of where all that is going.
It's great to see it interweaving with NFTs and DAOs. And essentially, I mean, he is the sort of person I would assume would be, although he did mention he didn't know a lot about the space, but he did start in that digital realm with cryptocurrency, of course, Silk Road being the online dark web portal for people to do illegal things. But that's the sort of people who, if you're not into illegal things and not in prison, you can personally profit from and get involved with. And as we see, even if you are in prison, you can get involved with it.
Yes, I think a large percentage of our listeners are in prison.
Yeah, I'd like to hope so.
Definitely not.
Cut that bit.
Leaving it in.
All right, so moving on to some interesting news, I think, with the hash rate that we're seeing now. Bitcoin has returned to all-time highs with its hash rate, which is obviously the mining, effectively how much mining is going on. We saw a massive dip after China came out banning it, and obviously with COVID and everything sort of shifting around, the hash rate plummeted, and it's really good to see that coming back up. And I think obviously we're trading a decent amount lower than the basic highs of 70,000 down to nearly 50,000. So this hash rate going back up, I think we're going to see. It was yesterday we just passed the 90% of all Bitcoin mined mark.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're going to be seeing, I think, fewer Bitcoins on exchanges and more people buying these Bitcoins that are available now.
Wow, man. It's amazing. See, we're up to almost 200 million terahash per second as the hash rate. Look, I don't even know what that means anymore. I remember mining back in the day when it was mega hashes. And now it's causes way beyond that. But yeah, you're right. China banned it. Hash rate takes a huge dip. The network takes a bit of a tumble, but it has slowly built back. And Bitcoin, the ultimate honey badger, lives on. It just persists and persists.
I love that term. Yeah, it's so true though. It really does. And I keep mentioning it, but I love the websites which show how many times China has banned it, or articles saying Bitcoin's dead, and they keep linking them to it. And as you said, it's the honey badger.
That's right. Yeah, it's what is it? Bitcoin obituaries. I think you can find that on 99bitcoins.com. Yeah, very funny. We had the German bank come out and offer to trade Bitcoin through their app. Now, this is something that the Commonwealth Bank of Australia did recently as well, and a whole bunch of other financial service providers, of course, PayPal being one of the huge ones. And this German bank now has come out and done it as well. They're saying, look, we're going to allow people to trade Bitcoin through their account. And I think this is becoming somewhat of a necessity now for financial institutions, right?
Yeah, through need and also through, I guess, just customers wanting access to it. You'd have a lot of people approaching the bank, and the bank would also see the back end of customers buying crypto, or at least sending it to exchanges. They have access to this information.
Absolutely,
and they'd be remiss not to take up opportunities like this. I think it's Sparkasse. I'm not pronouncing that. I imagine I butchered that, but it's a German savings bank, and they've got 50 million customers, and that's a small portion of the world's population, but it's a large population of German citizens now having access to that in one particular area, in one particular institution. And that is what starts these kind of movements, is when a large amount of people for one company or one institution get access to this sort of a product, the word of mouth gets out.
Yeah, man. You make a very interesting point, obviously, about the mass adoption aspect of this, but your interesting point, I think, is around that the bank knows where people are sending their money. They have information on this. So if they're seeing people sending money to exchanges a lot, then for them, it's a no-brainer. It's like, can we take 1% cut or 1% fee on every transaction here instead of having the customer send it to an exchange? Of course we can. That's a no-brainer. Let's make some money with this. But of course, what's fantastic about this is that they're slowly digging their own grave, because Bitcoin will begin to take over all these institutions as a settlement network.
Yeah, I really do agree with you on this one. And one of the articles which didn't make the cut today was discussing a kind of war games planned attack that a series of countries were planning on a modeled version of the world banking system, and to see how robust it is and how it can stand up to attacks. And basically the adage is, the defender is always multiple steps behind the attacker. And with Bitcoin, that's simply not the case. It's been the wild for 10 years now. There are literally $1 trillion, or a bit under now, but essentially there's billions, millions of dollars in this network. And it stood up to it. It showed how robust it is. And the banks can't compete with this, not on a financial fintech level. Not in the way that Bitcoin has the encryptions, the multiple layers, the node network. It's effectively one of the biggest networks in the world now. It's bigger than Google as a network. And so banks can't compete with this. They have to learn to adopt it and coexist with it and actually take it on.
That's right. Yeah. It's you got to, if you can't beat them, join them slowly. It's like, the advent of electric cars. It didn't happen all of a sudden. There was first, there was some dabbling in it. There was some short-term cars. There was some scooters. And then you had like plug-in hybrids where they would have like hybrid versions. Then you, of course, develop fully electric. You don't just go from a gas-guzzling, F-150 to a Cybertruck. It's a slow process and it's gradual. And this is what's happening with these banks, is they're dabbling in it. They're going, hey, let's just enable some crypto payments. And then what's the next step? Well, let's add some additional blockchain capability. Oh, actually, let's decentralize this aspect of our financial sector. And then before you know it, they're becoming a payments settlement network using Bitcoin Lightning nodes, you know?
Absolutely. And you make a really good analogy there about the electric cars. I can't remember who said it, but there's a saying, that's sort of the quote that went, I don't want to be the last horse and cart salesman while cars start rolling onto the roads. And
yeah,
there's obviously an adoption rate here. Actually, you sent me the other day, I think it was a little graph that shows the adoption rate of technology where we expect it to occur, like this new technology, what we expect from it and the timeline. And we tend to overestimate it. But as time goes, we underestimate the overall impact over a longer time span.
That's right. It's called Amara's Law. I'll flash it on the screen in the video edition of this podcast. If you want to Google it yourself, just look up Amara's Law. It's a very interesting one. Yeah.
Now, moving on to, I guess, adoption in politics. Now, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, of course, is the American member of Congress, she doesn't believe, well, a representative, she doesn't believe that any members of Congress, or I think essentially she would imply all politicians, should have access to stocks and specifically investment in particular companies. She didn't believe that Bitcoin should be something, any digital assets or currencies should be invested in by representatives of Congress. Now, whether or not this is something that I think should be legal or shouldn't, I'm interested in the opinions of these people because she obviously holds a lot of power. She's a younger politician, and she's a bit of a, I guess, a standout politician she's a woman who's suddenly come on the scene. She has made a lot of waves with her social views, very left-wing politician. And she has a lot of people believe in her, especially younger members of the population.
Yep.
I wonder how much she understands about Bitcoin. But I do think that it is important that there is a regulation with politics and who's investing in what when you kind of start going towards insider trading. And I'm really curious to see what you think about this, because I know you follow American politics quite closely.
Yeah, I do. I love American politics. Fascinates me. AOC, I think this particular this idea of hers is a little misguided, because at a certain point, because she's technically holding US dollars, and the spending of those US dollars into the economy is going to affect a number of things about the performance of the US dollar versus the performance of gold and other commodities. She's already part of that financial system. And I understand there needs to be some limitations. I don't think that it's a good idea to allow politicians that are in power to own stocks, and while they're making policies that affect those stocks directly. Bitcoin, I think, sits a little bit outside of that. While it is, sensitive to regulatory changes in the US, it's a global currency. It's a store of value, and it needs to be thought of more as gold or as a commodity or a financial asset, as opposed to a stock, because a stock, I think, is more nation state specific, and this is global. Of course, the US
and obviously centralized as well. Stocks imply that there's a company with a board of directors, or at least it's a publicly listed thing, which has people behind it involved in it actively, and they can be politically influenced or have influence politically.
Yeah, and it's all well and good for AOC to come out and say, "Look, this is my position." I think it's a bit of a political stance. Obviously, she's a politician. This is what she does all the time. She's coming out and she's saying something to boost her the way that she looks in public, which is fair enough. I am standing by this. I'm not going to be making money from this. But I think individual level, she should reconsider, because she's going to be protecting her own wealth against inflation, and she's not going to be hurting anybody by being pro Bitcoin, as a lot of politicians are.
Yeah, I agree, essentially, because I think she's looking at Bitcoin as a speculative asset. So implying that it's an asset class, it's not saying that we should hold, because implying it's a store of value like gold. But also because it is, at the moment, she's essentially paid by taxpayers' funds for her job. I'm very interested to see how that changes over, look, it's not going to happen in the next few months, over the next years, 5, 10 years, however long she remains in politics, to see what happens with her opinions and what happens with Bitcoin. This is something I'd love to touch back on in years to come, because I think she will change face as soon as things change for Bitcoin to become the reserve currency effectively, or if it's been taken on as a much more mass adopted thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this stuff goes deeper than politics, of course. We've spoken before about the deeper levels of cryptocurrency, and this week we had a director from the CIA coming out and saying that, don't worry, the CIA is deep in cryptocurrency. Basically,
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, the director said, look, we've got a whole bunch of projects that are focused on cryptocurrency. You know, it doesn't go into the specifics of them, of course, because that's intelligence stuff. But essentially he's saying, look, we're in this stuff where we have an understanding of it. And it makes sense. Of course, they're going to have an understanding. These are the people that really run the country.
Yeah, I agree completely. And there was that conspiracy theory that the CIA were the ones who invented Bitcoin. Look, I mean, it's a far stretch or not, it's a brilliant invention. And I think if the CIA's invented, it's obviously because there's going to be other motivations than simply just investing. Bitcoin, obviously, the encryption's behind it, the abilities for it to protect against attacks, and not just being an anonymous thing. It's also actually the irony in people thinking that Bitcoin is anonymous is that it's not. It's public. You are individually anonymous, but depending on the way you use your wallet or your Bitcoins or however you transact with them, you can be tracked directly because you can't hide that information off of the blockchain. And that's one of the things I'd be interested to know, which we never will, but how the CIA is involved in this and what their uses are for it. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you put it right. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the difference is between pseudonymous and anonymous. Because while we're still interacting with US dollars to get in and out of Bitcoin or any currency of whatever your nation state is, you remain pseudonymous, not anonymous, unless you've generated those Bitcoins using mining. That's a completely anonymous thing. But of course, now buying huge amounts of mining equipment or even holding that asset, it's very unlikely that it's not traceable back to you at some point. So, it's not anonymous. Yeah, no, that's it. And a lot of people pride themselves in the anonymous side of using Bitcoin. Quite often you'll hear things about how it's used to buy drugs, which I think it's been demonstrably shown that that's just not the case, but also it is true of fiat currency. Money is the main. I think drugs are much more often bought with cash than with crypto. Absolutely. That's it. And it's interesting actually to see that WhatsApp, which is they're looking to pilot crypto payments within the system using the Novi Digital wallet. This is going to be using Pax dollars. So it's a stable coin issued by Paxos. And the payment system is going to be similar to sending any attachment within WhatsApp. So you'll be able to send and receive. And there's going to be no extra fees for payments being sent or received, and has no limit on how often payments can be sent. So that's kind of differentiating from, I guess, sort of other banking apps, which you've always, I don't know about American ones specifically, but in Australia, you often have like a $1,000 or a $2,000 limit, and you can only send so much in a particular day or so many of those in a day. Larger settlements can take 1 to 3 or even 5 business days to settle. So this is a great little system that WhatsApp is starting to take on. Yeah. And the Meta's digital wallet, which launched obviously 6 weeks ago, is that's Novi. So this is another metaverse system which is being used and implemented by a really big company, WhatsApp. Yeah, of course. And WhatsApp being part of the Meta branch. It's remember WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, or now Meta. Yeah. So they're dipping their toes in, but they're not just putting one toe in; they're dipping a whole bunch of toes in. We had the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, proposing that we should allow businesses to pay state fees in cryptocurrencies. Somewhat of a far-flung segue from WhatsApp, but this was fascinating, man. Ron DeSantis is this governor in Florida, who's a bit of a renegade, particularly with how he handled the thing that shall not be named because we'll get censored off YouTube, and a bunch of other policies in his state.
this guy is a Republican. He's, possibly running for president at some point in the future. And he's made this bold statement saying, hey, let's allow people to pay their state fees in crypto because we want to be a crypto-friendly state. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really good to see, obviously, with Suarez being the champion of this, the mayor of Miami.
Yeah.
This entire situation is very interesting to see coming out of Florida. I wouldn't have picked Florida to be like one of the real pioneering states in America.
Yeah, who would have thought?
But it's great to see. And that sort of progressive thinking, whether or not this becomes an actual piece of legislation that businesses can pay state fees with cryptocurrencies, that's yet to be seen. But this is the sort of thing that people are starting to do. And so one of the books I was reading, I can't remember which one specifically, but it talks about if you have an idea, it's kind of like throw as many ideas at the wall and see which ones stick. And that's kind of what we saw with the WhatsApp wallet. And this is what we're seeing with some politicians coming out with some of these ideas and these suggestions and proposals. People are just starting to really try things. It's still a Wild West. We're seeing a lot of this stuff coming out, and specifically what's actually going to come from it is yet to be seen, as we know. I mentioned, I'm not sure if it was last episode or the one before, but Raoul Pal talking about how 90% of NFTs right now are going to lose all of their value. And I tend to agree. Even just looking at mathematics and statistics like Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle being that 20% of your profits 80% of your profits will come from 20% of the input. And that means that, you're only going to have a few things which are going to make the bulk of this stuff work. And whatever that is, it really fundamental to all layers of this. It could be the concepts themselves. It could be what crypto works, what NFTs work, which politicians have their proposals put forth. This rule is a pretty solid rule to get your head around.
Yeah, but you make a good point. There's a small subsect of these politicians like, Suarez and now Ron DeSantis. They're coming out and they're seeing the fire that is burning in the form of the US currency. It keeps going up. We don't have an article about it this week, but inflation announced yesterday was up 6.8% year on year, up from 6.2 last month. So we are continuing to see inflation soar, which means that if you're holding cash, your money is burning in your pocket. Put it into an asset, for God's sake.
I sent you the one this morning, actually, with the inflation rates in Australia being at 3%. If you have $100,000 in your bank account, if you have it was 1.58%, I think was the interest rate, give or take, against inflation, against any tax and all that sort of bank fees.
Yeah, you
lose approximately $1,300 in the first year.
Yeah, you lose
the first year. You lose $1,300 just by having it in the bank.
And what's the response from the politicians? Spend more money. You know what?
Spend more money.
Don't bother paying us back. Take us through the next article.
The strongest case imaginable to pause student loan payments even longer comes from staggering inflation report, advocates say. Exactly. So this is an American. Obviously, Americans have a different system to Australia, but Australia also has a similar system with our HEX fees and repayments. So in Australia, we don't charge interest. Our loans are indexed, but it still increases. So if you look at your HEX repayments in Australia, it's going up. In America, this is there's interest and there's different systems, but effectively a lot of people can't even repay the interest rates that they're accruing, let alone the principal.
Yeah, and the interest rates are soaring. But the funny thing is that they were paused recently. Biden came in and paused them. Student loan payments are paused, but they're resuming in just under 2 months. And
53 days.
Yeah, and Biden, of course, getting worried. He's like, hang on a second, our economy is not recovering because we're printing a bucket load of money. Who would have thunk it? I mean, everyone in the crypto sphere saw this coming. But, they're thinking, oh my God, we've got all these people that have got this huge amount of debt due. They're not going to be spending into the economy like we want them to. We need to pause these student loan payments again. God forbid.
Especially with the Omicron coming through, people still don't understand how this is going to affect people's health, but also the social and economic ramifications. Things are still going through a massive shift in what we can and can't do within the work zone, people, so many companies and businesses still are changing the way that whether it's work from home or they're allowing new businesses, everything's sort of changing.
That's right. And
these
old
students
world
are coming in like,
sorry, you go on.
I was just saying, these kids, if they're coming out with these huge debts and the interest is piling up and they're also facing raising inflation rates, you're crippling the next generation of middle-class people and basically forcing them into lower-class people.
Yeah, making the poor poorer. I mean, all of these, but you touched on something interesting there. All of these old institutions are rushing to meet the demand of the new world. And the new world here is metaverse. The new world here is crypto. The new world here is decentralized finance. And we have this credit card giant Visa has just come out and set up a whole new division to provide cryptocurrency advisory services to companies looking to get into the space. So they're basically, not only a couple of weeks back, we touched on them investing in a whole bunch of new crypto startups. Now they're going to be offering crypto advice.
That's it. And Visa is a massive payment system. They're one of the biggest in the world. And they have a huge customer base, and they have a lot of money now that they can put into these systems. Again, generally the first movers are those who are either incredibly lucky, involved in the scene, or have a lot of money and can be directly involved in that new scene that's starting to come through. And we're seeing Visa. I think we had some articles on them in the last couple of podcasts talking about that. But the services are essentially going to be aimed towards banks and retailers. And it really is high time that these people start getting access to it. Approximately 40% of crypto holding Americans would switch banks if the new institutions were willing to provide crypto custody and related tools. So people want this stuff. It's just the initial access to it is still, there's hurdles to get through. People are scared. They're not sure about the whole, sending money to someone that you can never get back. I was thinking, this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I was thinking, I'm going to go on a rant. I was wondering about the honesty of Bitcoin. How is the honesty of Bitcoin going to change interactions between people? Let's say if you accidentally send something to someone, if that wallet receives it and it's an active wallet with a person behind it, are they going to send it back? Now, today, I don't think so. In the future, this could be a decade away. I'd be really interested to see how people's interactions change psychologically from that perspective of honesty. If you get Bitcoin or if you accidentally send it. And this is one of the things that Visa is going to start, I imagine a lot of banks and a lot of custodial wallets are going to do, is offer some sort of temporary holding system, or again, like if you're a part of the system, within the system, you can only send money to someone who is registered as a holder of a wallet within that system. So if anything goes wrong, they can mediate it and come in and change. And
I mean, Visa, from the old world, it's the old world that is the fraud. You have Bitcoin is the honest system. I mean, I understand your question around honesty, in that, like, if there's a accidental payment sent to an old, maybe you bought some shoes off Bob, and then you meant to buy some jackets off Jess, but you accidentally send all the money to Bob. You could certainly chase up Bob to send that money back. But it's a final settlement network, unlike Visa, which, the finalization of those transactions can take up to 2 months. If I buy something off a website with my Visa card, they're only getting that, they get that money instantly in their account, but they can easily have that clawed back if I go ahead and contact Visa about, maybe they never sent me the items. Maybe I claim that, even though they did. This is why they need to provide tracking and all this other proof.
That's it.
That's right. There's a lot of fraud in the old system, is what I'm saying. The new system provides honesty there. You have self-responsibility, absolutely, but it's the ultimate self-responsibility. You have your financial independence, your financial freedom, and really,
self-control. You're mediating your own control.
Is there any other freedom, really? I mean, that's the ultimate one. Is the ability to have my own property and to store it for generations to come.
That's it. And it's similar to actual physical property. If you're going to loan something out, you're doing so at your own risk. You understand the terms of agreement. And same with money. They joke, like, don't get into business with friends and family. It's similar with this sort of control over your own finances.
That's right.
If you're going to send it to a wallet, make sure you got the address right.
That's right. And it brings back accountability for your actions. We live now in a zero risk game. You put your money in the bank account, and if that bank fails, your money is guaranteed by the government because they'll get bailed out. If it's a small amount, under 100,000, I think most countries have like a certification process that the government guarantees that money is safe. So there's going to be no risk on you to put that money in there. Stocks now is turning into the same thing. Anytime there's a slight downturn, they print a whole bunch more money and the stock market starts to go up again. There's no risk there. There's no risk in real estate either. There's all of these areas where there's basically
companies.
There's no accountability. Bitcoin is the ultimate accountability. You are responsible for your finances.
What's the old American saying? If you owe the bank $100,000, they own you. If you owe the bank 100 million, you own the bank.
Yeah, good one. I like that.
And talking of reforms, actually, there was some really good news. Well, I'm going to frame it as good news, but it did come from Frydenberg, who's our federal treasurer in Australia here.
Yes, back home. This Australian news, yeah.
Yes. So this is the cryptocurrency reform plan that we're looking at for 2022. And look, I think it would have been here earlier. It probably would have been here in 2020 had it not been for COVID and the explosion of all of the other issues the government's had to deal with there. So this has been, I imagine, has been formed, but who knows? It could have been done last week. But it's been a long time coming as far as Australian crypto regulation is concerned. So they're putting forth legislation to basically, their framing is it's going to be enhancing innovation and consumer uptake of digital technologies. Now, we don't know what that looks like yet. We don't know what systems they're going to be doing, but they have been talking about creating their own cryptocurrency with the Federal Reserve. And that's very interesting. An Australian cryptocurrency, or at least a network that is going to be giving access to cryptocurrencies, but the word regulation and comes in quite often. And so accountability as well is another word he used.
Look, I mean, there's Shipcoin, there's Cum Rockets, there's a whole bunch of other shit coins that are, stealing the Bitcoin off other people. Why can't the government get involved? Take some Bitcoin as well. Create their own currency, which is a centralized currency, cryptocurrency, and the ability to print more and more of it anytime they want. Sounds like a really bad version of Ethereum.
It does. And the thing that I love about Bitcoin, and people, talk about like Bitcoin maximalists being like, they're evangelical and they have these ecclesiastical views about Bitcoin's the one and only true coin. Look, it has one thing over all crypto in that it is completely decentralized. No one other than the entire network agreeing can change any part of the code and have it accepted by the entire network. And it's encrypted in an incredible system that has to date not been hacked, and they can't see any actual strong ways to hack it without, I don't want to go into details here, but essentially you could just go back before the hack and start the system again. And all the money and the effort and time was completely and utterly wasted. And the only way that Australia can essentially create a new system is by taking fiat currency and replacing it with a crypto-based currency, which is what we don't have one specifically now, but we've gone pretty full on into digital. Yeah. And fiat currency is definitely on the way out. And so this crypto currency, which is going to come out, will essentially just replace what we're seeing with digital currency. And you're absolutely right. I think it's just going to work the same as what the Federal Reserve does with printing money. We're going to see the same issues with inflation and supply and demand within the economic system with just a replaced currency.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have article after article of people making shitloads of money in crypto. We had another one this week from the Sydney Morning Herald saying this Aussie crypto fund manager is pulling in 28,000% returns. So this guy basically found the crypto project Terra along with a bunch of other DeFi projects back in 2018, invested heavily into it with his fund and has ridiculous returns. Now, you might say he's lucky and he's a survivor, but, he did the right thing. He invested in a space that was budding and was going places, and he made the money to back it up.
That's it. And he does have a background in, he was with JP Morgan. Of course, he's got investment banking behind him. So I imagine he's not completely clueless, and he's moved into the sector. And as you said, he's making shitloads of money. This is not there was all of the FOMO of crypto over the last few years, and it's still a wild west with NFTs and crypto. I think things are starting to fizzle out a bit more in that whole you can change your life in a day with crypto.
Yeah.
We're seeing things go more towards institutions, and that's where the control is going to start coming from. Large amounts of crypto are being held by, we talked last week, when the whales come in and buy 10,000 Bitcoin, you can't do much to change what the market's doing as an individual. They can. And guys like this, they know how to play this market because they have huge amounts of money backing them. They have insurance against losses as well. They have plans. They've been doing it for a decade longer, some of these bankers. And so they're in a prime position to make, well, as we said, 28,000% returns. That's just, the individual is not going to see that. But having access to hedge funds, to ETFs, which are exposed to Bitcoin and other cryptos, that is where you're going to start seeing more individual retailers retail investors getting involved in it, actually seeing some really good returns. Specifically, when you look at what's happening with the stock market, and as we talked about at the start of this episode, money is just, you can't make any money by having it in the bank. You literally lose money by having it in the bank when inflation is higher than interest rates. Yeah, that's the sum they should teach you in school. If interest rates are lower than inflation, don't keep your money in the bank.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot they should teach in school, but they don't. And yet they still teach a lot of crap.
They really do. Talking about shitloads of money, and we're going to end on a feel-good article here, ladies and gentlemen. Some absolute peanut sold a $300,000 Bored Ape for $3,000. They got the decimal point wrong.
Oh, Lordy. So this, brings us back to that accountability. This is the ultimate. I mean, it hurts, but that guy would have learned an expensive lesson. He basically took this Bored Ape, which is an NFT series that has absolutely shot up in value. It's got a lot of meme popularity. Accidentally sold it for 0.75 ETH, which is $3,000 instead of 75 ETH, which is what it was worth, 300,000. So that's a $297,000 mistake right there. Oof, ouch. You hate to see it.
It's got to hurt. It's got to really hurt. I think this is an important thing, which, look, it still happens today. People still sell things and do stupid things today with fiat currency and banks when it comes down to it. But as you mentioned, and you've really put together elegantly in this episode, is the personal responsibility that comes with having complete control over your finances, your crypto. And if you get that number wrong and you send it off or you tick yes, there's nothing anyone can do to help you other than the person at the other end, which kind of ties back to that honesty thing, is like, well, you're at the mercy of this person to choose whether or not they're going to accept it or return it. And I just don't think anytime soon you're going to see someone returning that Bored Ape for the price that they bought it for.
Some lucky guy bought it, because that was, at the end of the day, that was the fair market price at that time. Someone decided to sell it for that price. Someone decided to buy it for that price. So free market, beautiful thing. On that note, that's a good place to end it. Thanks so much to all the listeners coming in and checking in. And as usual, we love it when you give us a comment, leave us a like, or hit us a review on iTunes. That's our favorite. Helps us boost in the rankings and get this out to more people. Any final words, Swirty?
Remember to look after your personal finances if you're in control of them.
Right on. Good point. All right, brother. Peace out.
Peace out, man.